What up, people? This is Dedrian Colon, House of Wrestling, and this is my review of the January 17th edition of Monday Night Raw. This is 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks away from the Saturday, January 29th Royal Rumble. This show tonight was very interesting. For the most part, most of the crowd was just sitting there and with very few reactions. There's a few spots that the crowd like got into it, but it was like very, very, very few spots. Of course, in the first hour, it's I really don't hold it against them if the crowd's not into it because it's the first hour. You don't know what's going to happen in the second or third hour. You know more or less what the main event's going to be, so you're anticipating okay, the main event. But as you're going through the process and you're going through the fluidity of the show, man, once you get to that second hour, like halfway through that second hour, it's just daunting. It's daunting, it's draining, and it is very challenging to really hold your interest into this show. And one thing that really stuck out to me was like last week, I mentioned the same thing if you watch my last review from last week, that it was just the crowd was dead. Like it was just for the most of the show, it was dead. Same thing this week. Most of the show, except for a few spots where the crowd was into it, and I'll get into that a little bit. Um, it was just dead, and um, it really clicked with me, and just like I don't know, it just did something to me because I was watching. Not only was I watching Monday Night Raw, but I was watching the NFL playoff game between the Los Angeles Rams. I was going to say Rodgers, Los Angeles Rams, and the Arizona Cardinals. And the thought came to me. I'm like, man, why is WWE so like? It felt like they were very lax today creatively. Like, why are they so lax when the NFL has a Monday night game on? Like, and it's in Los Angeles. Now, granted, if you're on the East Coast, it starts at 8 Central and, it's 6 in the, no, 8, 7, 6, 5. Yeah, 8. Yeah, it's 5 Central or 5 Pacific. At 5 Pacific, granted, Raw's probably not airing if it's, like that. Of course, actually, I don't think it's airing live uh, on the West Coast. I think it's probably that West Coast feed. But even still, like the game was still going on. If Raw starts at 8 Pacific, you know it's the game's still going on. Like how is like that's something that just threw me off. Like man, this is like too lax for a show that's going head to head against a NFL game. And also adding that the Royal Rumble's not too far, and it just like this does not feel like a Raw that's close to the Royal Rumble. Like this felt like a Raw in like September, like one of those Raws. Like it did not feel like something um, that's you know getting close to the Royal Rumble because most of the Royal Rumble, most of the Raws and the Smackdowns, there's like an urgency, there's an energy where it's like okay, we're getting closer, we're getting closer. They build that up, and it may not be throughout the whole show, but they'll build it up. For the most of the show, like hey, the Royal Rumble, the Royal Rumble, and yeah, tonight it was just I don't know something in the air. I don't know if it had anything to do with the Mustafa Ali requesting his release over the weekend, or if it had anything to do with Cody Rhodes and his free agency and stuff like that. I don't think the latter holds any precedence over Monday's show or even Mustafa Ali's. Maybe it had a little bit, but yeah, it was just a show that was just really yeah, it's you want to there's a lot of performers that I like in the WWE, but the way that they're using them and the way it's you know they're presenting them on TV and just the flow, the fluidity, the timing, the pacing, it just does not mesh. There was backstage segment that I thought was pretty cool, and I'll get into that right now. And that was it was Edge, Beth Phoenix. They ran into Dana Brooke and Reggie, and they were talking about, um, the Royal Rumble and escaping Omos, who they fought later on and stuff like that. And that interaction was pretty cool. And then it led to Edge and Beth Phoenix run into Damian Priest, which I love that interaction. I could see those two guys eventually having a match this year at some point, which will be really cool. Because Damian Priest does have has like that Edge vibe, like that vibe that Edge had in '98 when he debuted. It's pretty cool. And then from there, you go to um, Damian Priest and Kevin Owens just interacting. And it wasn't like usually when Raw has these continuously shot backstage segments, sometimes they're, you know, lingering too long and, the person's just sitting there looking in a gaze and then they go into the next thing. No, it was just a continuous. I was like, ooh, this is so good. Man, this is well done. I'm like, I wish they would do this more often. But yeah, that was probably one of the few backstage segments that was um, pretty good tonight. But yeah, you know what? I'm gonna get into the pros first, and then I'll get into the cons, and then things that were just like in between. Like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't necessarily good. It was just there. But I'll get into that. So yeah, the pros for Monday Night Raw on January 17th, 2022. Got to go right with the KO Damian Priest match. That was a very good match. I can see these two having a really good feud. This could possibly be a WrestleMania match if you really look at it. These two can have a WrestleMania match, and I think it's going to lead there. I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Owens wins the United States Championship. Something to think about. He could defeat Damian Priest for the United States Championship, which would sign a new contract. He might be getting some gold. So it was. I do recommend anybody who's watching this video to watch that Kevin Owens Damian Priest match. It was really cool. The crowd, one of the few spots that the crowd, where Raw was held, the city that Raw was held, where the crowd was really into it. They were, they loved the spots. Damian Priest has the crowd in the palm of his hands, and he kind of explained why he's, Damien and Priest and that whole thing, which is all right. It's cool, but we kind of like the old you. But yeah, that's one of the pros of Monday Night Raw. I recommend you guys watch that match. It was very well done. And the cool thing about this match was, spoiler alert, Kevin Owens pinned Damian Priest, and Kevin Owens is the first person to pin Damian Priest since he was called up from NXT. So that's why this match is very good, and I recommend you guys to watch this because, again, this is the first wrestler to pin Damian Priest since his call up from NXT. That was pretty dope. Another pro for this edition of Monday Night Raw was the interaction between RKO or RKBro and the Alpha Academy. So the Alpha Academy, they had this special presentation, which was pretty, corny, but it fit them for what they do. But it was kind of interesting because they came out to the Macho Man's theme, and right away, if you're watching this, you know right away what Macho Man's theme is. And what surprised me was there was no reference to Macho Man or just like, hey, this presentation and ceremony is very savage, or like there was no reference to it. And myself and a few other people on Twitter, we noticed it. We're like, hey, that's the Macho Man's theme. Like, of course, we know it's the graduation song and it's public domain, but for the past 30, 40 years, it's been known as the Macho Man theme because he popularized it so much. He pretty much brought it to pop culture. Um, a entrance theme that's pretty much a graduation theme, but he, made it pop culture. So yeah, that was pretty cool. The uh, Alpha Academy, they're teasing, RK-Bro. Then Riddle comes out in a cap and gown, and that was the cool thing. Like Alpha Academy came in this cap and gown, like a ceremony presentation. So Riddle does his thing. He says his shtick, and he goes in there and tries to he taunts him, and then what's cool? Randy Orton out of nowhere, RK-Bro or RKO. He hits it on Otis, and then uh, Chad Gable turns around, boom, another RKO, and you see Randy Orton and Riddle there in cap and gowns, and Randy Orton and Riddle's like, we'll take you on. So that's a match. I believe it's going to be next Monday or at the Royal Rumble. One of the two. Actually, it might be at both. Knowing how WWE is, they like to tend to book everything double. So the other pro about this Monday Night Raw, the 8-man tag match. Um, it. I mean, we've seen so many of them in WWE where it's pretty much guys that they really don't use much, and it almost felt like a filler. And it's really disappointing because you had the Street Profits and the Mysterios versus the Dirty Dogs and Apollo and um, was it a knee Apollo's side guard? I forgot his name. He was in the Raw Underground last year. So you had that match, and I mean it was a pretty cool match. That's another match that the crowd was into, because of course Rey Mysterio, he always gets the crowd into it. Granted, he's up in age and everything, but hey, he gets the crowd popping, he gets the kids, everybody into it with his moves and stuff like that. And it's really cool to see. I've seen Rey Mysterio live and in person. Wrestling, it's fun to see. So I could see why they would pop and things like that. And then of course, they're fighting and everything, and Montez Ford, that man, I would say, and I tweeted this, I would say behind the RK-Bro, he has one of the most crowd popping finishes in WWE right now. Because as soon as he gets to that top rope, because what makes it so special is not so much that he's getting on the top rope, it's the fact that when he jumps off that top rope, how high he gets in the air and then comes down. Like, man, you know what? I would say him doing that is equivalent to Macho Man's elbow, where it's just like it's a thing of it's artistic. It's just so beautiful. See, you're just like, man, this is so beautiful. That was a highlight. A pro for something that I would say is a pro of the Monday Night Raw. It was very, very, very good. As soon as I seen it, I was like, man, this is so fun to see. This is so much fun to see. And I would wish that WWE would book more wrestlers who have really cool finishers. Hey, put them more on TV. That's how you get people to tune in and want to watch these guys, because it's like, oh man, that's a cool finishing move. That's how it was. That's how it's always been. You're like, oh man, that's a really cool finish. I want to see it. And another pro was the Bobby Lashley Brock Lesnar video. That was a very good video. They might have it online on WWE's YouTube channel, or it's probably floating around on probably on all their social media accounts and everything. I recommend you guys watch that video. Man, this was a really well done video. Just detailing, the build up for their match at the Royal Rumble. I liked it. It was a great hype video. I kind of wish that, I know myself and a few other people, we kind of noticed that, hey, if you're gonna show this video, don't have Bobby Lashley in a match against Seth Rollins, and in that match, I'm kind of jumping a gun right here. You have the Hurt Business come and attack Bobby Lashley, which it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense, because it's like, why would they, why? Like, why? Like, we kind of know that he's not going to do anything with you, and he's going to, his sights are set on Lesnar. Like, why would he feud with you? And then, yeah, I'm not going to get into more of that match, but yeah, it was just just very weird. Like, it's unexpected, but it's not an unexpected, like, oh my God, this is pretty cool. It's like, all right, it is what it is. But yeah, that's for me. Those were the pros for tonight's Monday Night Raw. The cons for Monday Night Raw. Um, yeah, this is it's hard to dispute this. The very first one is the Vince McMahon Austin Theory backstage segments. Um, I do not get where they're going with this. Of course, watching wrestling and watching WWE so much is like, hey, they want to get Austin Theory over as the next big thing, no pun intended. But it just, I don't know, it's just really weird because of McMahon's um, age and everything. When he talks, like, you really can't, and it's not making fun of him or anything, it's just the truth. Like, you really don't understand what he's saying. And that wasn't the case 10 years ago or whenever he spoke. Like, when he spoke, you kind of you got the point. And, now when he talks, like, you have to raise the TV up. You have to really listen to what he's saying. And you're just like, all right, he said something. And I don't know, it just really didn't, I don't know where they're going with this. And to add on to that, he's fighting. Austin Theory winds up wrestling, returning Finn Balor, and he pins Finn Balor clean. So that's the other thing. Like, where is this? What are they gonna do with Finn Balor? Like, they're pretty much using him as a jobber, pretty much. Ever since he got called up from NXT, that's pretty much what he is, a jobber. I mean, he hasn't been the same since you could call it a debacle or what have you, when he fought Roman Reigns at Extreme Rules and the top rope broke. Like, ever since then, I don't know, man. Um, I hope he doesn't get released. I hope it's on more of the other end where his contract is expiring and he doesn't re-sign and he can go elsewhere, because it just every time Finn Balor's on screen, you're just like, this guy should be doing so much more than what they're doing with him, and this is like a travesty. You're talking about a guy that is the founding member of one of the most famous factions that is in pro wrestling, the Bullet Club. Like, this faction is, they're compared to the NWO, and they're ranked like one of the top factions in wrestling history, and you have him as a jobber. Like, that makes no sense. The other thing that I really just didn't make any sense, and it, again, this is a con of Monday Night Raw, is the Omos Reggie match. Like, it was basically a setup for the 24/7 shenanigans that they do. Like, you have Omos break away from AJ Styles, and now he's just doing 24/7 shenanigans with Reggie, almost, by you know by by association. And I don't know, it just didn't make any sense. And I hope they do more with Omos. I do got a feeling he might do a Diesel with him in the Royal Rumble, where he throws like 12, 15 people out, and you're just like, oh man, this dude's bad. But yeah, it's unfortunate, because it does seem like they do not have no idea what they want to do with Omos. Like, they got him away from AJ Styles, like, all right, we're gonna push him. But where are you going to push him? Are you gonna push him down? push him side to side, push him in a circle. Like, what are you going to do with him? Another con that I had was the Rhea Ripley, Nikki A.S.H. match, altercation, what have you. Nikki A.S.H. gave her promo, Rhea Ripley gave. This whole story, like, they need to just go in different directions. I don't know. I don't get this. Nikki A.S.H. is a villain, a superhero villain, and they start jawing at each other, and then Queen Zelina and Carmella comes out, and it yeah, if you're watching is that you're probably feeling the same way. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, this doesn't, like, it feels like it's not going anywhere. It's just staying somewhere. It's like, creatively, it doesn't make sense. You have all these characters and these wrestlers that when you see them on TV, you see them in photos, you see them on advertising, you're like, man, I really want to see this wrestler. And when you go and you see this, it's just like, what the hell is this? And this actually goes into one of the big cons that I had for Monday Night Raw, and they've been doing this a lot. I want to say maybe the last, I could be exaggerating a little bit, but maybe the last 2-3 months, where, so for instance, they had, was it okay? So, for instance, they had Alpha Academy come out, and that's where it started, because it was actually right before the 8 o'clock hour, 8 o'clock Central Time hour, and they had the Alpha Academy come out, and then they go to commercial. They come back. Then Rhea Ripley's given a segment. Then they go back to Alpha Academy, and I'm like, wait a minute, all this time Alpha Academy's been in the ring? And then that's when Riddle comes out and the whole RKBro thing happens. And then from there, they go to a backstage segment with Vince and Austin Theory. Then Finn Balor comes out. Then they go to commercial. Then they go to the Martin Luther King vignette, the video that they always play on Martin Luther King Day. So they go to that. Then they go to the match. And that MLK tribute was at least maybe 5 minutes. On top of, so you think about 5 minutes on top of maybe 3 minutes of commercial. That's 8 minutes Finn Balor's in the ring. So that was one whole from right before the 8 o'clock hour till right after the 8 o'clock hour. You had all that. And it doesn't make sense why they do this to these wrestlers, where they bring them out. They, the wrestlers have their entrance. They bring them out. They go to commercial. They come back from commercial. They go to an interview. Then they have like a little video. Then they go back to the ring. And all this time the wrestler's been sitting. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. Like, why? Why do you do that? That makes no sense. You've never done it before. Who the hell came up with that? It's ass backwards. So yeah, that I've noticed that for the past couple weeks, and probably, now that I think about it, maybe the last month or two, that they've done that. And it makes no sense, because it makes the wrestler look goofy. Like, why the hell would a wrestler wait 10 minutes for his like, come out to the ring and wait 10 minutes when he could just, like, do all that, then introduce? Like, that doesn't make sense. Another issue I had was it was a con of mine, is the Alexa Bliss therapy segment. Like, this is like, when Charlotte tore up Lily months ago, everyone was like, yes, now Alexa Bliss can go back to what the hell she was doing, and we can move on from that. Apparently we're not. And it doesn't make sense, because Bray Wyatt and The Fiend aren't there. She's not feuding with Randy Orton. Charlotte is on SmackDown. So what the hell what sense does it make to bring her back to a character or bring her back in a character that there's no correlation to when she left. That makes no sense. And it's, I don't know, man. It's just cheesy, just very cheesy. Um, and then to top it off, the Nikki Ash Rhea Ripley match was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a match. It just didn't start because Nikki Ash just beat her up before the match, so the ref gave it a no contest. So there was actually one match, and that was the Doudrop Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan and yes, Bianca Belair. And that was a tag match. That was a pretty good opener. That was a really cool opener. Again, this is a common theme. They have a pretty cool opener, and then it just drags and is draining and is challenging, and there's a lot of things that do not make sense, and you're like, why is this happening? Why is this here? This should have been here. Then you get a brief bright spot, then it just goes back to being lethargic, and then once you get to the main event, you're like, oh, it's the main event. And I've mentioned this before, WWE in the last year and a half, they've done a very bad job where they can have a very good match. You look at it, it's like, ooh, man, I really want to see, man, this match is very good. But the build up to that match, and by build up, I don't mean between the two wrestlers. I mean the build up of the whole card, the whole show building up to that match. It takes so much out of the main event. It takes so much anticipation, interest, intrigue from the fans. Like, ooh, okay, now we're here. Okay, now this is must see. I want to see this. And oh man, they took it out. The main event was pretty cool. Again, this falls into the category where it's just in between. It wasn't, man, this is really good, or oh man, this is so terrible. None of these were terrible, or bad or anything. It was just there's no way to feel about it. It was just there. And it's not a shot at these wrestlers, just how it's coming across creatively and how it's coming across on television. It's not coming across television entertaining. It's not. It's not entertaining. It's coming across very like a time filler. And that's bad because you have, um, main event, for example, you had Seth Rollins and Lashley. And again, like I mentioned before earlier in this video, you have the Hurt Business come out, which it's like, okay, Lashley kind of dissed him and threw shade at him. But why are they out here? He's not fighting for the title. Like that's the other, it doesn't make sense. Like he's fighting for the title on, less than 2 weeks away. Why are you interfering now? Doesn't make sense. And then the Usos come out because Seth Rollins escaped them on SmackDown. And that's why, if you follow me on Twitter at Dedrian180 _, I tweeted like, just end the brand extension already. Like you're already having so many people cross over. Just end it already. I know a lot of people don't like it because when they ended the brand extension, it was just boring. But at this point, because of so many people they cut, like realistically, I could see them not continuing with the brand extension. I could see them just, yeah, all right, we're gonna go back to one whole brand and everything. So I don't know, we'll see. The other thing was the Edge, Beth Phoenix, Miz, and Marcy segment. Marcy wanted Beth Phoenix to talk things out. Edge walked out with her. Miz came out, tried to attack Edge. They were fighting and everything, and Marcy hit Beth Phoenix with a brick in her purse. And, that was it. I mean, I don't want to say a stereotypical build. It's a build that if you watch WWE for so long, you're kind of grown accustomed to. Like, it's not, oh man, that's crazy, she hit her with a brick. You're like, okay, she hit her with a brick. We're going to get to the Royal Rumble. They're going to do their thing, and it's probably going to be Beth Phoenix getting her revenge and Edge winning and setting up for a WrestleMania match, or it's going to be the Edge and Marcy, or Miz and his wife Marcy, getting one over on Edge and Beth Phoenix, and then they go back and forth, and then it leads to a WrestleMania match. I think I actually gave away a spoiler. They might do it. That's funny. But yeah, man, this show, man, I just can't wait till they get that new TV deal and they go back to like 2 hours. They need to go back to 2 hours. Like, this is not. It's not helping the wrestlers. It's not helping them creatively. Um, it's just not helping the people in the live audience. It is very, very lethargic watching this show. It's very challenging. And again, this is not a shot at the wrestlers. I will never attack any of the wrestlers for what they have to do in the WWE or anything like that. Because it's not necessarily them. It's the creative giving them the stuff to do. And again, these wrestlers are trying their best to make the best out of whatever creative's given them. So I give kudos for them to doing it. But man, WWE's creative and Vince McMahon, like, you guys need to improve, because this is not entertaining. It's not. It is not entertaining. You have too many talented wrestlers that can put on some really good matches, and historically throughout their career have put on some fantastic matches, and you're giving them like 5 minutes. And that's the other thing. One of the other major cons that I had about this show was that there was so much talking, and it wasn't talking with a purpose or leading to something. It was just talking, like, oh my God. And I get back to my earlier point in this video is Monday Night Raw was up against an NFL game. And not only an NFL game, an NFL playoff game for the first time on Monday Night Football. And it was the Los Angeles Rams, the city of Los Angeles, and the Arizona Cardinals. So not only was that in the LA market, it was national TV. And your counter to that, or your competitive creative to that, is just have people talk. Like, talk. Like, and mind you, this game, that crowd, and here's the key to this, and this is my final point. And if you were like me, you were watching both things, whether it was your device or TV or vice versa. If you watch both things, if you watch the WWE over here and you watch the NFL playoff game here, the crowd in the NFL playoff game would have you go, ooh, man, that was a good play. Man, this crowd's really into it. On Raw, again, this is back-to-back weeks. You look, yeah, let me go watch the football game. The WWE's doing it to themselves. WWE Creative is doing it to themselves. Not the wrestlers. WWE Creative is doing it to themselves. So, I don't know. Yeah, this Monday Night Raw, I hope next week gets better, because, man, this is a challenge watching this show on Mondays. Man, oh man. But thank you guys for watching this Raw review for the January 17th edition. Yeah, it's a challenge for me. It is a challenge for me to watch this. But like, share, subscribe to this video. Yes, this is how draining Monday Night Raw is, that I'm getting tongue twisted talking. Oh God, it's draining. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, follow House of Wrestling on all social media platforms. You could follow me on TikTok and various other social media platforms at Dedrian180. Man, thank you guys. Thank you guys for the new subscribers. Thank you guys for the views and everything, the follows and everything. I really appreciate it. This House of Wrestling is basically on YouTube. Is basically me, and what you see on Instagram and somewhat Facebook and stuff like that. Shout out to Josh Lopez for the Pro Wrestling transcripts, and Sean Lennon from the Pro Wrestling Enforcer podcast. Just sharing their their independent wrestling gigs that they go to, and also the results that Josh Lopez does. Thank you guys so much. But yeah, it's pretty much me doing this. So thank you guys so much. But yeah, that is my review for Monday Night Raw. I am Dedrian Colon. This is the House of Wrestling, and I can't wait for the Royal Rumble to come. I can't wait for the Royal Rumble to come.